Ciao! So what is the way that shelter animals are able to help the whole entire world to be able to focus on how shelter animals are in need, to be able to help the whole entire world to become a better place by learning how to help shelter animals, by learning to thereby help the rest of humanity. Stay till the end to try to find out the answer, to figure out the answer. Stay till the end, stay till the end. Welcome to the news. Welcome to the news. Think Tech Change for Games. Yeah, welcome to the news. So, what we're trying to get into today is how to triangulate for a future dynamic network where, in essence, like the Good News Network, in a certain respect, we are sort of like a Twitter for good news only, type of a sort of a dynamic of an energy to be able to bring into the world. So how are we going to try to kick that off? First of all, we're going to try to tune our energy into more of like a music, like a DJ type of a brand, so to speak, and this weird little singing voice. At the same time, we might be able to combine that with a little bit of in the background music to have every day, have a little bit of music to go with these little weird little podcasts on a day-to-day basis, so that in the background we'll try to have a little beat, a little bit of funk, a little things of this nature, so that in the back there's a little bit of a corresponding beat, as opposed to just silence where I'm just rattling off these sort of crazy sort of lyrics, which are like poetry almost kind of combined, but not really. It's necessarily just sort of strange. And so we're just sort of going with that to just try to be like a unique sort of content development source for now. It's called Think Tech Change for Games. Think Tech Change for Games is the network, but at the same time, the primary core for developing Think Tech Change for Games was to be able to develop the way that Change for Games is able to be Change for Game Studios at the same time, because Change for Game Studios is trying to emulate a movie studio. So at the same time, we're trying to develop a content network, global connectivity concept that at the same time is also trying to ping itself into a community format, ultimately somehow, to some extent, to some degree, by being able to try to weave together different communities at the same time. So ultimately, it's a fabric process that's sort of corresponding to existing energies as opposed to trying to reinvent the wheel. And so how we're trying to focus on playing that, in essence, is by our community being able to try to weave two different communities together, which are the philanthropy energy community, which corresponds to humans and humanity, and combine that with the essence of the nature somewhat of the animal shelter community. The animal shelter community corresponds to trying to connect different groups to be able to help animal shelters and different cats and dogs that are sadly lost on a day-to-day basis. They are left behind and they are gone and they are put to sleep forever because of the fact that there is a lack of ability for animals to be able to communicate. First of all, for them to not be able to speak, that is one element that they are disadvantaged at, and that is why there are support groups, there are networks to be able to have voices for the voiceless in this instance, so that in essence shelter animals have networks around them, so that in essence it's possible on social media to try to network and to bring people some awareness, to be able to bring people's focus, to be able to focus on shelter animals, to be able to help them, to be able to get them out of shelters, to be able to give them homes, when the essence of that whole process and that whole concept is sort of bleak. It's a problem, it's an issue, so people are trying to help it. People are actively developing groups. They're formatting different hundreds of thousands of groups on social media, or to sometimes formulate to people to try to give focus and awareness to certain shelter animals in certain urgent situations on a day-to-day basis. And so there's a uniting factor, there's a unification revolving around these shelter animals because of also the love, the source of asset energy that comes from shelter animals in essence. So how we want to try to flip that is, in essence, the nature of Change for Game Studios. The hopeful future for Change for Game Studios is trying to be able to bridge the gap, in essence, from the shelter animal world, from being able to have shelter animals be distributed in terms of their energy, their content, their emotions, their messaging. Their messages are able to be broadcasted on the internet and distributed in different fashions. And at the same time, as we continue to want to turn up the volume on the distribution of shelter animal content, at the same time, we want to bridge the gap into the content for more philanthropies and more philanthropy energy as a result, by broadcasting the focus on different philanthropies around the world at the same time, different nonprofits, different philanthropies at the same time, similar to how shelters get certain aspects of focus because they, in essence, are trying to broadcast for animals who do not have a voice. But at the same time, we have a corresponding concept where we want to try to have the animal shelter mindset be able to help humanity to then also come back to be able to help the shelter animals again. So we're trying to bridge the gap between shelter animals, conceptual media development, and bridging the gap in the distribution sense by developing formats of conceptual group developments in the similar fashion, by being able to help the voiceless of shelter animals, and taking that same concept and being able to bridge in essence, the problem-solving, hopeful ability to be able to distribute messaging, to be able to save lives, fostering saves lives for shelter animals on a day-to-day basis, and bridge that into humanity at the same time by developing more of a network, more of a framework. And that's what Change for Game Studios is all about. That's the essence, that's the core, that's the purpose for Change for Game Studios, is to try to be able to develop these types of networks, these type of healing networks, these type of hopeful networks, to be able to have these same similar circles for humans and humanity. Because ultimately, in a weird sort of strange silence way, that in essence there's a certain element of niches of humans that are in essence silenced in their own sense, where they're silenced by their own silence based upon social silence, that's almost like a necessity to stay socially silent, because certain times people feel as though they are sort of given what are seemed to be and deemed to be things that are gifts, things that are assets, things that in essence are supposed to be fulfillment tools in essence, which are also corresponding to like jobs, for example, and like the ability to be able to pay certain day-to-day and month-to-month and week-to-week subscriptions and items and tools that are necessary to be able to continue to run their life in a modernized society, which in essence corresponds to having a job to be able to pay for all these things on a dynamic circular basis. So that, in essence, is mistaken. That lifestyle is mistaken, and many times for an asset lifestyle, for a lifestyle where people are able to and need to and necessitate the ability to be able to figure out their own processes. But sadly and truly, ultimately, after all, in essence, spiritual finance corresponds directly to the undertones of that conceptual world, where in essence there's a lot of more or less sadness in the world, where in essence it also reflects on the shelter animal world at the same time, because there's a lot of the sadness that reflects into the shelter animal community, which causes shelter animals to go there to begin with. But nonetheless, our whole hope, our whole interest, our hope into making a bridge from one aspect of the distribution style of the animal world into more or less the human world, to be able to try to bring that compassion and that ability to be able to look out for humans in a similar fashion, especially the voiceless humans with voices out there that in essence like just do their thing, but they're not necessarily happy because there's not like other ways or better ways, but they're in society, they have a job, they have certain things to be able to keep themselves aligned, and also so it's just is what it is. So ultimately, if there's a compassion bridge, not to say that the shelter animal world is happy by any stretch at all, but there's communities around it that revolve around it, there's certain energy that focuses around people that are voiceless, animals that are voiceless, to be able to try to impact and influence and better that process. And thereby, we want to bridge that into the human world, so that in essence we can have groups formulate, and different groups that formulate around therapeutic mindset processes that are not based around therapy concepts per se, but just based around the concept of looking out for all humans and looking out for having the ability to have people one for one, to be able to match one for one for people, so that there's like free accountability coaching for one thing, like free accountability coaching, and also free, you could call it therapy, but just also someone to talk to, free people to just talk to, more or less, to be able to have the ability to be able to vent and be able to just have straight up connection. And artificial intelligence is actually one element, one tool for that. One conceptual healing element to artificial intelligence is having the ability to conceptualize development of friends or friendships that ultimately can be programmed and tuned into frequencies that correspond to how humans already act necessarily. So in addition to that, we want to also make more music, if possible. But anyways, whatever. So beyond that, we want to try to be able to bring more awareness to humanity and the essences of the holes and the gaps in humanity, to where different groups can formulate around different niches, where different people feel more confident to be able to formulate themselves within certain groups. And identification corresponds to different groups where people need help, and it's okay and it's normal, super normal and super normalized and super common to be able to need help and or want help and or to be a part of the process in a similar fashion, like a dog in an animal shelter. Basically, in a very similar fashion, like a dog in an animal shelter, where there's people that are looking out for different people, that are looking into the ability to be able to help different people in different ways, because they can enter groups that make them similarly aligned to dogs in animal shelters either way. Or you can enter the group as someone trying to give help into the people that feel like they're in animal shelters, type of a similar mentality, maybe, because it's just kind of like one or the other binary. You could be one or the other. So you could be just trying to help that cause, or help on one side of the cause to be able to help the feeling of the people that feel like they could use help, or you could be on the side of just entering wanting help. One or the other, that dynamic binary relationship could be conceptually very valuable for many humans, to be able to just have that dynamic, to be able to enter into that conceptual dynamic. And so therefore that could then ping back across the bridge back to reflect more so highly upon the shelter animals in the short and long term, so that ultimately shelter animals could be treated better as well, because a lot of the negative treatments of animals, shelter animals as well, to be able to cause them to get into shelters in the first place is a result of dissatisfaction and unhappiness and sadness within humans that causes them to then sort of turn down, and it trickles down into their animals and their shelter pets, in essence, to be able to then have everything land at the shelter, which makes the shelters, in essence, a sad and negative and derogatory place after all. So we're trying to have the same support group, the same mentality, the same distribution content network to be able to flow and focus into the Change for Games network mindset focus mentality, which is the philanthropy energy generation mindset mentality, which is doing good deeds for people and finding different ways to be able to group different people into acceptance pools where, in essence, they're okay just existing and just being okay existing as a human, and also existing, and by reaching out and just being part of different dynamics and different groups, it's possible to be just okay to be a human, and just to be a human, and also to have acceptance and have awareness and have guidance and have principles and have accountability coaches all ready and aligned for every single human on earth, that there's either one side or another, that 50-50 is like divided into helpers and or helpees, but hopefully the helpees can diminish, and then hopefully positive statistics can grow, and we can have goals as a globe, as a world. We have global positive statistics goals, as in addition to the UN goals, in addition to those, because those in essence are trying to collectively be reached. And apparently humanoid robots in the future can help alleviate poverty in the short and or long term, down the line, obviously, if we can get through the turmoil of the future. But in essence, if we're able to start to look out for all of humans and humanity like a commune, like a global commune, that it offers the ability to be able to develop a similar support group to the shelter animals, and then therefore it's like a back and forth, pinging back and forth relationship, having a solid more connectivity between the philanthropy industry and the animal industry, to be able to connect the essence and the love of shelter pets, and the sort of like unconditional love in many ways for shelter pets, in essence, to be able to try to get better treatment, and the world collectively has better energy vibrations, frequencies, and also the ability to more soon try to advance and enhance the economy, so that in essence we're thriving off of global philanthropy energy. Global philanthropy energy can be the circulating source of monetary energy, in essence, because that unforeseen energy needs to be parlayed and parsed into the water for people to be able to drink that water on a day-to-day basis and feel it in their societies, and feel it in every single country, that there is people to turn to, there's support groups, there's hundreds and thousands of groups for people to be able to turn to, and not just be like a couple lines and couple messages necessarily on the sand inside of some like digital platform necessarily, but they can reflect and relay and go to real life events or conceptual elements or different spaces where they can go speak to people behind a wall if they need to, and just be able to have the ability to know that somebody's there, especially like an accountability coach, where if people have dreams or interests or incentives or inspirations, that they are able to be able to try to conceptually follow through with those items, and just like have a better dynamic to then therefore be able to welcome new animals and have a circulating cyclical fashion. But this dynamic group of a community is what we're trying to develop the community around for Dink Tech Change for Games, Dink Tech Change for Games, Dink Tech Change for Games Studios. Yeah! That is how we're able to answer the question that we started this little podcast off with, which is adding electricity and the ability to be able to develop a new media network around the world. Yeah. So we'll try to add some more music to this scene. We'll try to add some more music into the scene, and just try to add this to make it a little bit like a freestyle, I guess you could say, by just at least adding like a little bit of a beat in the background. So every day we're going to try to add like a little bit of a beat, so it's like a DJ session and like a beatbox. Like, this is trying to be punk rock music, by the way. We'll see how that goes, and we'll see if we can make some better quality music down the line as well. Or DJ in real life, no idea, who knows. Keep you posted. Thanks again, Dink Tech, bye, peace, bye. Dink Tech Change for Games, Dink Tech Change for Games Studios, bye, peace, bye.